Help me raise our child. Leave everything else behind while we still can.
Regina George is flawless.
She has 2 Fendi purses and a silver Lexus.
One time she met John Stamos on a plane, and he told her she was pretty.
And when did it become okay for one person to be the boss of everybody, huh? Because that's not what Rome is about! We should totally just stab Caesar! I'm just a girl in love. I can't be held responsible for my actions.
And if we had children, they would be his, not mine. They would be his property. So don't sit there and tell me that marriage isn't an economic proposition, because it is.
Cool girl never gets angry at her man. She only smiles in a chagrin-loving manner. I am so much happier now that I'm dead.
Padme has a pretty centered self, that it's not that she goes through this big change internally, but that external things are changing around her, and she has to sort of make decisions to cope with that.
It is 2005, and you are going to see the final Star Wars movie. You've gotten to know these characters for nearly 6 years and are excited to see the culmination of their arcs. Let's see how they did. With so many Jedi stationed around the galaxy, Master Windu served us well in the capital. We must accord him special honors for being the one to confront the Sith Lord as soon as he was discovered. He sacrificed himself trying to save us all and will be remembered. There were many Jedi lost in the attack on the temple, but none so promising as Anakin Skywalker. He almost single-handedly defeated Count Dooku and saved the Chancellor before reporting the true identity of the Sith Lord. Truly a tragedy for a hero to be cut down in the prime of his life. A moment of silence for him and all the other Jedi who gave their lives trying to protect us. But let this not be a wholly somber occasion. Senator Bail Organa must be commended for his rescue of several of our Jedi from the attacks. He continues to do his duty in the Senate seat, and we must hope for some success to come from that quarter. I hear he and his wife just celebrated a daughter, which is wonderful news. Jedi Master Yoda was a great aid to the Wookiees and managed to escape the clone troopers' treachery. He helped to investigate the attack on the Jedi Temple and confronted the Sith Lord all on his own. His location must remain secret, but he will certainly return to help when the time is right to defeat the Empire. Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi was also able to escape the attack on the Jedi. Before it, he defeated General Grievous himself. After the attack, he investigated the temple and was able to destroy the traitor. His location must also remain a secret until he can help us bring down the Empire. And finally, Senator Padme Amidala, who called out the Senate for its failures years ago, who suffered from multiple assassination attempts as she prepared legislation that could have avoided the war. Now she has sadly passed away. We could truly use her strength and ingenuity in this new political climate. If only her work for the Senate had averted this catastrophe. Anyway, hello! On this channel, we talk about ladies, and this series is all about how female characters were treated by this franchise. Today, we're talking about how Padme Amidala wraps up the trilogy. As always, I know how Star Wars fans can be, so please be aware. This video is for ladies, by ladies. If you mainly think of her as Luke's mom or Anakin's wife, this video is not for you. Please feel free to click on something about lightsaber choreography or whatever. For the rest of you, we are going to talk about how Padme had very little to do in this movie, how her character arc ends, and what her legacy really is. Let's get started.
Have you ever considered that we may be on the wrong side?
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying that Revenge of the Sith is definitely my favorite of the prequel movies. And I'm pretty sure that's not a controversial take. Most people like it best. I think the emotion and melodrama that may have been a bit more awkward in the previous installments works perfectly here for the Shakespearean tragedy that is unfolding.
You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!
And Padme is obviously a significant part of that.
Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
Honestly, having our heroine be pregnant for the entire film is pretty unique and subversive. And she gets one of the best lines in Star Wars.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
The drama of this scene is palpable. Our three characters are not exactly in a love triangle in the traditional sense, but they do all have strong feelings for each other, and we're dealing with the fallout for actions that could have been avoided if they'd acted differently.
Because of Obi-Wan.
Because of what you've done.
You turned her against me! You have done that yourself!
The second half of the movie is definitely among the best in this series and probably others in terms of editing and escalating stakes. Watching everyone make the worst possible choices and how quickly that results in exponential changes is thrilling. And of course, seeing how the Republic finally becomes the evil empire is well crafted and frankly realistic.
You're under arrest, Chancellor.
Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
All the pieces fit together thematically as most everyone brings about their own fates, which is a very unique way to wrap up a trilogy. But we are here to talk about Padme, not the movie as a whole, and unfortunately things don't go quite as well with her writing.
I'm so sorry.
Look at this line.
So this is how liberty dies.
Succinct, politically accurate, 100% true to character. These are definitely the words of a woman who is about to start a rebellion.
I know this.
Except she doesn't, which does not make sense with what we already know about her, so let's go back over her political career. In my earlier video on Padme, I talked about how she is really the main character of The Phantom Menace. The overarching plot is completely about her and her planet.
It's Queen Amidala herself.
At last, we are getting results.
The characters whose names you might go into it already knowing are barely more than cameos.
Anakin Skywalker? Meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
She is the one getting mentored by Qui-Gon on screen, not one of the fellas.
Spaceports like this one are havens for those that don't wish to be found.
Like us.
And she is also the first character we see used as a pawn for Palpatine.
You could call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Valorum.
I move for a vote of no confidence.
Except then she does the unexpected and goes to take down the Viceroy herself.
I've decided to go back to Naboo.
Go back.
Something he did not account for.
Please, Your Majesty, stay here where it's safe.
His plans still come off without a hitch. Both of them serve their purposes, but he underestimated her.
She is more foolish than I thought. Wipe them out. All of them.
We will send what pilots we have to knock out the droid control ship orbiting the planet. Then we can enter the palace and capture the Viceroy. Now, Viceroy, we will discuss a new treaty.
Which you would think would be important in a series about how he is engineering his rise to become Emperor of the Galaxy.
Congratulations on your election, Chancellor.
Attack of the Clones does somewhat reinforce this idea, as our villains are very focused on killing Padme.
But for a certain senator, in grave danger, you are.
What about the senator from Naboo? I am not signing your treaty until I have her head on my desk.
They're trying to stop her from presenting this bill to the Senate that will not allow for the Republic to create an army.
I realize all too well that additional security might be disruptive for you.
And unlike the previous movie, none of these machinations are like a distraction. No, as far as that movie goes, Palpatine seems to think that she is the greatest threat to his efforts to take over the galaxy, and the only way to continue gaining power from the Senate is to kill her.
I never well enough to assure you of that.
Her, specifically Padme Amidala, not Bail Organa, not Mon Mothma, Padme.
You really think that's a wise decision under these stressful times?
It's why she goes into hiding for most of the movie.
Do it for me, milady, please.
At the end, Palpatine gets his war and finds a better use for keeping her alive.
The war has begun.
Everything is going as planned.
To manipulate Anakin. But we'll come back to him in a moment. The first movie in the series established Padme as a force to be reckoned with, and the second upped the ante with at least the idea that she was a significant threat to the villain's plans. And then we get this movie. There are a few deleted scenes that I think should absolutely have been included. In them, she meets with Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and other folks to discuss getting the Chancellor to give up some of his power.
We are not separatists trying to leave the Republic. We are loyalists trying to preserve democracy in the Republic.
And these add perfectly to Padme's actions in this galaxy. The prequels are all about the good guys doing bad things with the best intentions. She did not mean to put Palpatine in charge or be part of that process, but now she is seeing where they are heading.
At this point, some things are better left unsaid.
And hopes that it's not too late to stop it.
We cannot let this turn into another war.
Except halfway through this movie it is. So we wrap up her senatorial run with a last look at her clear insight.
With thunderous applause.
But as great as these scenes would have been, there is a reason they can be deleted, you know? Like, they don't really have a significant effect on anything in this movie, including Padme.
I thank you for bringing this to my attention, Senator.
Okay, her political career barely exists in this movie, even though it could have been a significant part of it. Not only does she not start the rebellion, but her actions are not even why Palpatine pushes ahead with Order 66 and framing the Jedi. That's all Anakin. So Padme doesn't even get to be a catalyst in that unfortunate turn of events, which would have at least reflected the Padme we met here.
It is clear to me now that the Republic no longer functions.
Storming her own palace to rescue her people.
Captain!
What then does she do in this movie? Well, her politics are not a catalyst, but her mere existence is.
It was a dream, like the ones I used to have about my mother, just before she died. And it was about you.
The fear of loss is a path to the dark side.
You could actually save people from death. Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
I'm not gonna die in childbirth, Annie. I promise you.
No, I promise you.
Know the power of the dark side. Power to save Padme.
I have the power to save the one you love!
I will do whatever you ask. Just help me save Padme's life. I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of, and I'm doing it for you.
Padme is in this movie to do two things: give birth and die. Her place in the story is to get her husband to go off the rails out of worry for her.
You thunder against me!
I mentioned that this bit in Return of the Jedi is, you know, great for Luke.
So, you have a twin sister. If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
But it really reduces Leia to just being an object in the fight, not a participant.
Tell your sister you are right.
And that's what Padme is here, just a possession for Anakin to fret about.
It was only a dream.
I won't let this one become real.
When I started this series, I pointed out what had to be true going into this trilogy.
Do you remember your mother? Your real mother?
Anakin needed to have 2 kids at some point, but Padme could have been anyone.
She died when I was very young.
And I talked about how pleasantly surprising it was that The Phantom Menace chose to introduce the mother character first and have the story be almost exclusively about her, with just a bit of a side plot to pick up Anakin.
You're a funny little boy.
How do you know so much?
It was a great decision to have her be a politician, which enabled her to provide the explanation of how the Empire was built over time,
I move for a vote of no confidence.
with small transgressions snowballing into total control on Palpatine's part.
Congratulations on your election, Chancellor.
Giving her that role not only echoes what Leia did in A New Hope, but also emphasizes how important Padme is to both this galaxy and our understanding of it.
I haven't worked for a year to defeat the Military Creation Act, to not be here when its fate is decided.
Patience, Viceroy, patience, she will die.
Until this movie. Now we don't see her do anything with politics until summoned to this emergency session. And while this line resonates, it's no longer her perspective we are following to see the final nails in the coffin of the Republic.
What's happened?
The Chancellor's been elaborating on a plot by the Jedi.
Instead, she's reduced to being what was necessary for the male characters. Luke doesn't remember his mother, so she will not survive this story.
I have no memory of my mother.
Never mind that Leia did, and she could have lived for years in hiding with her daughter.
She was very beautiful, kind, but sad.
The only action we see her take is to go see Anakin. And while that obviously had to fail, given what we know about the story, it could have developed her as a character. Instead, she is so shocked that she dies of sadness.
I don't know why. She has lost the will to live.
But first we must establish that Luke Skywalker is the firstborn, so he can take after his father with the Force. While Leia apparently went into politics because she was genetically predisposed to, like her mother. Weird.
Just images, really. Feelings.
Anyway, I'm saying that we were introduced to a new and exciting kind of character whose only established canon role was to give birth to the actually important protagonist and never be heard from again.
I never knew her.
Instead, we started out with someone who was important to the galaxy all on her own and who took charge of her life in impressive ways.
Now, Viceroy, we will discuss a new treaty.
As a member of the Senate, maybe I can find a diplomatic solution to this mess.
Only to end up with her role just being to give birth to an important person, and it's not even her daughter. So, this series set out to establish her as a fairly unique character, even at the time, where a politically ambitious woman could stand against the future emperor, and was the only one to do so.
I will sign no treaty, Senator. My fate will be no different than that of our people.
Both of these movies emphasize how important Padme is, both in universe and as a pillar of the plot. So I had high expectations for how she would ultimately figure in the establishment of the Empire. And instead, I am forever disappointed, because she does not actually pose a threat to the Emperor at all.
May I take it then that there will be no further amendments to the Constitution?
I want this terrible conflict to end, just as much as you do, my lady.
Because she does not make a decision regarding her children beyond naming them.
Hidden, safe. The children must be kept. Split up, they should be.
My wife and I will take the girl.
To Tatooine. To his family send him.
I will take the child and watch over him.
Because her appeals have no effect on her husband's choices.
It was only a treat. Have you ever considered that we may be on the wrong side?
Obi-Wan and the Council don't trust me.
They trust you with their lives. I'm not gonna die in childbirth, Annie.
Help me raise our child. Leave everything else behind while we still can.
Because she spends the climax of the film unconscious and then dies for no reason at all.
I know.
More than that, she was used by the plot for Anakin's ultimate development instead of doing anything herself. Great. Women are the reason you go to the dark side and try to kill your dad/mentor.
You will not take her from me!
But they can't do anything more helpful than beg you not to.
You brought him here to kill me!
No!
What an unsatisfactory ending for what started so wonderfully. So yeah, my disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. If they hadn't built her up so far, I wouldn't be so disappointed, you know? So let's see how her character arc wraps up. Alright, for the final part of Padme's journey, let's talk about how she wraps up her arc in this movie. On screen now is if we treated this movie as a standalone. Unlike the others, her story doesn't really start until pretty late in the movie, and it may be a bit of a stretch to call each of these a step.
You're going down a path I can't follow.
But back to her overall arc. In Attack of the Clones, we left Padme in the descent, deciding that no matter what the risks, she would marry Anakin. And we meet her doubling down on that decision.
Something wonderful has happened. I'm pregnant.
While we see Padme several times earlier in the film, I would say we actually do not make any progress on her arc until right here. This is her descent and initiation, as it is about to be his. She is pregnant and cannot control either him or how the Senate is going, but she is trying to communicate with him to keep him on her side. And because this movie is a tragedy, she will not be successful. The next step is to urgently yearn to reconnect to the feminine. This is where Padme is when Anakin returns from the temple and tells her about the Jedi insurrection.
I saw Master Windu attempt to assassinate the Chancellor myself.
And all she wants to do is run off together. She realizes that her descent, though intended to strengthen her resolve, has led her to a situation she cannot help. Our heroine will usually heal the split from which she separated initially at this point on her journey. For Padme, as I outlined in this video, that was the just rule of law, essentially.
It is clear to me now that the Republic no longer functions.
She's been trying ever since to ensure a functioning democracy across the galaxy.
I haven't worked for a year to defeat the Military Creation Act.
But instead of finally achieving this, Padme sees her complete failure.
So this is how liberty dies.
Allowing us to still experience this step makes it a much better tragedy. Things are not going poorly just to be edgy or whatever, but to emphasize how she was doomed by the narrative. And it follows the logical steps, just with failure instead of success or healing.
I can't.
The penultimate step the heroine goes through is to heal the wounded masculine. She learns from both the feminine and masculine to integrate them in the following step. However, as Padme has just lost the feminine for herself, a functioning government, she rushes off to heal the masculine.
You're going to kill him, aren't you?
Except she inadvertently ensures that there can be no healing on this side either. As with the previous step, the tragedy occurs because everything is interconnected and failing at the same time. Of course Padme would rush out here, and of course that would bring an end to everything.
I don't believe what I'm hearing. Obi-Wan was right. You've changed.
The final step is to integrate the masculine and the feminine to become a whole person. Instead, Padme literally separates the two by having twins who will not meet for 20 years and permanently separating from her husband.
Where is Padme?
However, despite this tragedy, there is hope for the future.
There's good in him.
Ultimately, her son will save his father, and her daughter will ensure the end of the Empire. And perhaps her husband will finally join her again. So overall, she does go through all of the steps, and that is particularly interesting, given that this is a tragedy and could easily have cut short any of the healing parts of the journey. But instead, it addresses each of those steps and how they fail, emphasizing why this is a tragedy and giving us a good picture of what could have been.
Is she safe? Is she all right?
And that's wonderful and very unique. But as I talked about with Leia and in this video on Black Widow, my focus on our leading lady can give the benefit of the doubt with regard to the writing, when it really shouldn't. What I mean is this. Yes, Padme goes through these steps, but is that what you remember about this movie? Or are her most memorable scenes these ones?
It's a go.
I'll talk more about those in the next section, but it is essential to look at arcs in context. So let's look at how her co-stars developed.
This is where the fun begins. My powers have doubled since the last time we met, Count. We're coming in too hot!
I'm tired of all this deception. I don't care if they know we're married.
I'm appointing you to be my personal representative on the Jedi Council.
How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
Because of what you've done. What you plan to do.
Liar! If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. You underestimate my power.
Tell your people to take shelter. If you have warriors, now is the time.
Hello there.
General Kenobi!
Not even the younglings survived. Who could have done this? It can't be. I will do what I must.
Well, then you are lost!
And now the time is, Commander. At an end, your rule is. And not short enough it was.
I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi. The dark side of the Force surrounds the Chancellor. And our worst fears have been realized. We must move quickly if the Jedi Order is to survive. In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you're under arrest, Chancellor.
I saw thousands of troops attack the Jedi Temple. What's happened?
The Chancellor's been elaborating on a plot by the Jedi to overthrow the Senate.
Get him, R2! Watch out!
Hear me? R2!
Don't worry. I'm sure he'll be all right. No, I think I'm beginning to get the hang of this flying business.
Here, treat them well, clean them up, have the protocol droid's mind wiped.
What?
So yeah, Padme is important to this story, but as I mentioned in the previous section, what she does is less important than the fact that she is a wife and mother. All the things that made her a unique person can be ignored in favor of motivating the male characters. While this climactic showdown is happening, where the most powerful Sith Lord goes up against the most powerful Jedi,
Not if anything to say about it. I have.
and our two leading men become the mortal enemies we had heard about,
I have failed you. I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over.
Padme is simply unconscious, waiting by to do her one last duty for the trilogy before dying. A significant portion of her screen time in this movie is her dying or being dead.
We are losing her.
She's dying.
My point here is that yes, we do get Padme's whole arc, and certainly in a more fleshed out and thorough way than we needed to for how things end up. But her arc is still not even tertiary to the plot of this movie, and that's a significant step down from the previous two, which is a shame.
I'm so sorry.
So let's get into what all of this means for us ladies.
I'm not gonna die in childbirth, Annie.
All right, to wrap up with Padme, I want to talk about why I picked this title for the series. It's from this quote of Leia's.
The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
As they are focused on ending the story, the writing for the ladies slips through, if you will. Because our ladies start out amazing in each trilogy, but then that drops off. So my goal for this section is basically this tweet. How does this trilogy deal with the idea that women can be heroes?
You call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
But first, let's talk about literary allusions. For example, in Wrath of Khan, there are multiple allusions made to Captain Ahab in Moby Dick, referencing an obsessed beyond self-preservation captain in this story.
Hell's Heart
I stab at thee! For hate's sake! I spit my last breath at thee!
Informs us about what drives this captain.
From hell's heart, I stab at thee. For hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee.
As the stakes are raised, it adds to the story. Contrast with, like, Snow White biting an apple, like Eve in the garden.
One bite, and all your dreams will come true.
This comparison doesn't tell us much about this story, so it's more of an Easter egg. Lucas uses multiple allusions in his stories. In Attack the Clones, Romeo and Juliet is clearly referenced with our star-crossed lovers. Their song is called Across the Stars. It is a better allusion to that Shakespearean tragedy than many others I can think of.
And now that I'm with you again, I'm in agony.
I defy you, stars!
But there isn't much else going on. The discussion begins and ends with this is a Romeo and Juliet story.
Oh, happy dagger, pass me true, swayed my breath to stop. She is yourself inside my heart, and like the beat, I drop.
Another allusion is to Frankenstein in this scene. Unlike other movies who poorly attempted the reference, this one upholds the dichotomy of creation that the original work described. We have the, dare I say, holy creation of life versus the unholy abomination. So good use of the source material, but it doesn't tell us much about this situation beyond the obvious. The creature Victor and Elizabeth have virtually nothing in common with Vader, Palpatine, and Padme, other than, perhaps, their ultimate fates.
First your childhood friend Henry, and...
Finally, the most obvious allusion involving Padme is a comparison to Shakespeare's Hamlet, specifically to this painting of Ophelia. There are plot similarities as well between Anakin and Hamlet. Both men are bringing about their own downfall, and part of that is influenced by their mothers in how they treat their ladies.
Like the ones I used to have about my mother, just before she died.
So I buy Anakin as Hamlet, but what about Padme as Ophelia? The main takeaway for Ophelia, and the reason she resonates with many women, is that she has no power. She is stuck in a situation where the men make contradictory demands on her.
The games you play, my lord, nothing is ever as it seems.
Go to the nunnery. But now I see you should have been married long since.
Which leads to her madness and death.
Be sure to dig me up, and I promise you'll get an excellent anatomy lesson.
And does that sound like Padme to you? Maybe in this movie, but certainly not before it. Taking matters into her own hands is a consistent part of her character in the rest of the trilogy. So while Anakin may slot fairly easily into the role of Romeo, Hamlet, or even the creature, everything we know about Padme shows how different she is from Juliet, Ophelia, and Elizabeth.
Now, Viceroy, we will discuss a new treaty.
He gave you strict orders to protect me. And I'm going to help Obi-Wan.
All three are young women, but also notably, they are powerless women. Their fates are the result of the men in their lives making decisions for them and not listening to them. Which, yes, is true of Padme at the end, but should it be?
This war represents a failure to listen.
She is a senator, and a well-known and powerful one at that. If anyone could stop the Chancellor from becoming Emperor, it would be her. Not Obi-Wan, not Anakin, not even Yoda. She is the one who has gone up against him before and succeeded. He tried to have her killed, after all, not anyone else. Yeah, she may not be able to do anything about a Sith Lord, but she certainly can and has done things to ensure the rule of law. That is the core of her character.
That's exactly what we do.
The trouble is that people don't always agree.
So the idea that she would just show up to this meeting and make a snarky comment, nothing else, is insane to me. Why was the mother character made into a politician at all if she would have no part in the growing empire aspect of the story?
The Jedi have tried to overthrow the Republic.
I can't believe that.
And what about the fall of Anakin Skywalker? Ophelia, Juliet, and Elizabeth are unable to influence their men because they've never had any power in the relationship. But do you really buy that this Padme couldn't have done anything to change Anakin's decision? I mean, there's a reason they communicate wordlessly in this scene. If she were able to talk to him, I'm sure she could talk him down.
Don't do this. Don't shut me out. Let me help you.
What I'm saying is that a key feature of these tragic women is that they are powerless on every level. Padme is very much not and has never been. In fact, a significant part of her character introduction was about how powerful she really is.
I am Queen Amidala.
Now, you can use literary allusions of any kind without there being many plot similarities.
I understood that reference.
But the reason it is a problem that Padme is so unlike these other ladies is that their fates are explicitly commentary on the gender politics of their societies. We, as the audience, see how much Hamlet has messed things up because of how it has affected Ophelia. We see what Victor has wrought when Elizabeth is dead. And societal issues here are thrown into sharp relief when this young girl, whose only indiscretion was to fall in love, kills herself.
Don't call and left no friendly drop to help me after.
As far as we can tell, Padme being a woman has nothing to do with the society in the galaxy far, far away. No one ever references her gender as exceptional, which I'm not complaining about, but in what at least appears to be an equal opportunity galaxy, what does it say that she winds up so powerless, unable to prevent or even fight against her circumstances?
I can't.
She has power and she knows how to wield it.
You assume too much.
We will see. We must do something quickly to stop the Federation.
I call it aggressive negotiations.
In fact, like Leia, Padme was obviously designed to comment on our society. She isn't a damsel, and she is her own person.
Gather what troops you can. We've got to get to that hangar. Get a transport. Hurry!
Capable of intelligent diplomacy.
I ask you to help us. We are your humble servants.
And one of the best shots with a blaster we've ever seen. What does it say that she can do nothing in the political realm or the personal?
And it was about you.
Well, I hate to be cynical, but I think it just says that female characters are unimportant. That when crafting this story, there are some things Anakin's wife had to do for his arc, so she does that and nothing else.
No politics, no plotting, no war.
Case in point, this scene. Her only active scene in the movie. What is the purpose of their confrontation in the narrative? Anakin has already gone to the dark side. We've seen the Sith eyes. He's becoming Vader. He is lost. So then she shows up, the person who is most important to him in the galaxy, and he gives her the same spiel that he's about to give Obi-Wan, in what is a much more memorable scene.
I have brought peace to the Republic. I am more powerful than the Chancellor.
I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.
It makes Padme's part here into a kick-the-dog moment for our new villain, rather than anything meaningful for their relationship. This interaction doesn't change or really affect either of them, other than, leading to her death. Even moving it to a different point in the story would have significantly added to its impact. If they could have had a real argument before Mustafar, they could have fought and Padme made clear she isn't on board, and it could have still ended this way and he'd have to go double down on his side by taking care of the separatists.
What if the democracy we thought we were serving no longer exists?
And you're sounding like a separatist.
But really the only way to improve this scene is to have Padme survive it. Hey, do you remember how Juliet ended up in this crypt? Her cousin died, and her grief was so intense, she just died of sadness. Except, wait, no, that was a ploy to get her out of the house and ready to run off with Romeo. Actually, now that I think about it, a lady dying of sadness is also a ploy in Much Ado About Nothing. You know, since it's not a thing that really happens, but men are dumb enough to believe it of women.
For reasons we can't explain, we are losing her.
What I'm saying is that if we're doing a Romeo and Juliet illusion, why change Padme to a different character as soon as Juliet starts doing something? Padme could have faked her death here, and that be the reason she was separated from her children. Or at least from Luke, making Leia correct. We could have easily had, instead of darling, dearest, dead Ophelia, Padme in hiding and starting the rebellion. Sure, she isn't alive in the original trilogy, but anything could happen in the next 20 years, and be a great story for the other canon materials that came out in the meantime. But instead, she dies. And I think it is just so these can be her dying words.
I know.
To lend them the proper weight, giving this legacy to Luke as what will truly cement him as a hero.
There is still good in him. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
But if that's the only reason she has to die, it's a poor one. First, because her holding on to this idea doesn't make sense after he attacked her. Second, because she doesn't tell this to Luke, but to Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan.
Which she could have done if she was alive. And third, most importantly, because nothing she said in this movie is shown to matter. Her pleas and arguments have fallen on deaf ears with the Senate, with her husband, and with Obi-Wan, proven by the fact that they all go through with their stuff. And Obi-Wan definitely does not believe this in the original trilogy.
He's more machine now than man, twisted and evil.
So yeah, the idea that her last words are going to have any kind of impact doesn't match the rest of the story.
How long is it going to take for us to be honest with each other?
Let me illustrate my point by using a counterexample from Willow, another Lucasfilm project. Big spoilers, but trust me, the show is still great, even if you know what's going to happen. Link in the description for where you can watch. Kit Tanthalos is arguably the main character in this story, which is all about saving Kit's brother from the evil one.
I want to help rescue the prince.
Tough. Go home.
Like Padme, she's involved in politics from a young age.
I wasn't the youngest queen ever elected. But now that I think back on it, I'm not sure I was old enough.
Prince Graydon marries my daughter, Kit. At last, unifying Terraslene and Galadur.
She's more pragmatic than interested in magic or the Force.
You Jedi are far too reckless.
All I know is what I can see. And so far, I haven't seen any magic.
Her loved one falls victim to the lies of an evil crone.
I'm depending on you to be the eyes, ears, and voice of the Republic.
I hid from you because I've made mistakes. I trusted the wrong person, and I had to be sure that I could trust you.
The story kicks off when she chooses her own path instead of listening to older folks.
I've decided to go back to Naboo.
Mother, I said I think I should go west to search for Eric.
I heard you.
When she finally arrives, like Padme does here, she finds that her brother is already turned and on the dark side, essentially, with delusions of grandeur.
I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of.
You're my brother!
I'm your king!
But unlike Padme, being the most important person to him is something that can make a difference.
I didn't ask for your help.
No, you're gonna get it anyway because you're my sister and I love you.
And bring him back.
What do I do?
Talk to him. If he can, he'll see the light and come to you.
In fact, it's the most important thing that this whole story has built up to. Again, spoilers, sorry.
I want to help rescue the prince.
Tough. Go home.
All I know is what I can see. And so far, I haven't seen any magic.
I just want to go home. Well, Tough, I have never believed in anything. My whole life. I believe in you.
It kind of changed my life.
And so you wasted it searching for a magical breastplate that somebody told you in a bedtime story? That's like the saddest thing I've ever heard.
I said love is the most powerful force in the universe.
Are you kidding? It doesn't work.
But it's gonna work for you. You're the one.
And all you gotta do is believe in yourself and you will be unstoppable.
We both believe that love is the most powerful thing in the universe.
Kit learns to trust her feelings over the course of the series, and this is a final culmination of that arc. How does this confrontation have any impact on Padme?
I don't believe what I'm hearing.
Like Obi-Wan with Count Dooku or Luke later on, there is no tension that she'll join his side. And since we follow it up immediately with why Obi-Wan also will not join him, what is the point of having her do it first?
Obi-Wan was right. You've changed.
She does not give up on him or grow more cynical. So why have such an emotional scene if both characters are unchanged by it?
I don't know you anymore.
There's good in him. Sure, Jan.
My point here is that all these comparisons to powerless women sends a pretty hopeless message to all the ladies watching, even if the intention was the opposite. What does it say to us when Padme, the most capable woman we've ever seen, still falls victim to the downward spiral of a man?
I don't believe you.
She was unable to stop either of these men, and even worse, did not actively cause things to go bad. If we're gonna see her suffer, she could at least be the architect in her downfall, you know? Like, we clearly see how the men make choices that bring about their doom, but Padme can't even do that?
I can't.
No, she is just a beautiful flower cut down in her prime. No matter how powerful she was initially, she can't even suffer from a tragedy the same way a man does. She can only be collateral damage. To be honest, it left me feeling exceedingly hopeless.
So this is how Liberty dies.
So back to that tweet. Does this trilogy stick with the idea that women can be heroes? It sure seemed like it wanted to. The Phantom Menace set out to establish Padme as not only essential to the story, but for it to be largely about her. Attack of the Clones did not quite have the same focus, perhaps, but she was still an essential part of the galaxy as a whole. In both cases, Padme could save the day just as well as the fellas.
Get a transport. Hurry!
But then this movie feels like it pulls back its hand and says, well, sorry, but there were more important things that had to happen. So we're gonna have her around, being pregnant and kind, to show you what Anakin really lost. Let's make sure we emphasize how important she is to the dudes and sort of forget to make her important to the plot. Thanks, I hate it.
You're breaking my heart.
As with Leia, I think this led to how she's remembered in pop culture. Or rather that she isn't, if I'm being honest. Yes, if anyone is talking about pregnant characters, she comes right up. But very rarely is she mentioned in any other context. What people most remember is this. She is why our hero goes to the dark side, and nothing more than that.
I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of. And I'm doing it for you.
This trilogy started out by making it clear how important women, or at least this one woman, were to the galaxy and to the whole story. And she was well-rounded, with her emotions mattering and the expectation that the audience would care about what she thought or felt just as much as the fellas. But Revenge of the Sith reduces her to a liability and a casualty in the men's story. She has virtually nothing to do with the creation of an empire and less to do with the fight for the soul of her husband. Which means that us ladies are welcome to appreciate the writing and the tragic resolution, but we are clearly no longer being invited to the party. Not unless we want to be pretty and dead.
He's dying.
We don't know why. She has lost the will to live.
Because that turns out to be Padme's real legacy. An intelligent politician who may stand up for herself, but ultimately does nothing substantial in the creation of the Empire. She does not set up the rebellion. She has no impact on Anakin's fall other than existing. So even though Star Wars has always been special for subverting tropes, especially where ladies are concerned, this one misses the mark. And what that means is that this trilogy can be remembered as one where the men are the real heroes and villains, and women are just a liability. But maybe things will be better in the next trilogy.
Rey Skywalker.
I always like to wrap up these videos with the question, is she more than a love interest? Is she more relevant to the plot than just motivating a man?
It was a dream.
And I hate to say it, but Padme really isn't in this movie.
Oh, Anakin. What are you gonna do?
Sure, she did some things, but her only real impact is as Anakin's wife. The person in his visions. What she does or thinks or says does not ultimately make any difference. So while she could not be removed wholesale, any other female character could fit the role, which was not true in the others in the series.
I can't believe that.
But this is the end of the trilogy, so I want to evaluate it from that perspective. She had an arc over the whole thing. She went through every step of the journey. Even though her end was destined to be tragic, we still saw what could have been if she had succeeded in healing the wounded.
This war represents a failure to listen.
There's good in him.
She had a love interest, and that story was central to the plot.
You're starting to become a Jedi. I'm a senator.
She had an impressive political career and was feared by the villains for what she could do.
Please, Your Majesty, stay here where it's safe.
What about the senator from Naboo? I am not signing your treaty until I have her head on my desk.
So while I am disappointed that never came into fruition, it could be worse. She could have always just been a random mother figure who was introduced for that sole purpose.
Oh, no.
But instead, she's a well-rounded character and she went through all the steps, so we can still get emotional catharsis from her story.
You're going down a path I can't follow.
And while I think it would have been far more interesting for her to survive the trilogy and to allow her to continue being an aspirational figure as she formed the rebellion and got up to other adventures before the next trilogy starts, she was still aspirational at the beginning, and it's a good way to wrap up the story of the galaxy.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Thank you for listening to me talk about our Space Queen. Next time, we're gonna start unpacking this whole situation. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, join my Patreon, buy me a coffee, all the things so you don't miss it. See you then.